Let's get some more thoughts from investigative journalist Gareth Porter. He also specialises in US national security. He's joining us on the line from Washington, D.C. Evening, Gareth. As we're witnessing the Arab world again today in a big protest against America, but shouldn't Washington have anticipated this, indeed, or at least been prepared for an outbreak of anger like this in these volatile communities? Is it such a surprise?
Well, you're absolutely right. It should not have been a surprise. In fact, there's plenty of evidence, has been plenty of evidence for years, that the United States has been playing with fire in regard to its broad policy toward the problem of terrorism and towards the Middle East, in that there has been building for many years a strong sentiment among Arab countries and Islamic countries populations that the United States has become an anti-Islamic country, particularly because of its fighting wars within Islamic countries, carrying out wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan in particular, but also in Pakistan, the drone war in Pakistan. And then on top of this, the strong impression that the U.S. population harbors anti-Islamic sentiments, which, of course, this latest crisis has once again raised in the minds of most, I would say, Arab and Islamic populations across the globe. And so, I mean, this should be a wake-up call, a red light flashing for the national security elite in the United States that they need to take a deep breath, take a big, long rethink about the broad strategy that they've been following with regard to national security policy. It has not worked, it has backfired, and has made the United States much more vulnerable to the threat of terrorism in the future.
And in view of what's happening in Libya, should it be reassessing its security, emergency security for its officials, its embassies abroad as well?
Well, I don't have any specific recommendations for the protection of U.S. diplomats, but I must say that it would probably make sense to pull back from the most vulnerable areas until the United States has, in fact, done this rethink and has tried to send some signals that it recognizes that it has made some serious mistakes. I think that's what's really called for in this situation.
How much political influence do you think Washington's now set to lose in the region after these protests? It's difficult to know how long they'll go on, but if they die down relatively quickly, next couple of days, what's the picture going to be, do you think?
Well, I'm not sure that this, fundamentally changes the situation with regard to U.S. influence in the region. I think that influence has been on the wane for years. It's measured by the attitude surveys that have been taken. We know that in Egypt,
but surely
for
this
example,
is another nail in the coffin,
May,
isn't it?
there was a. Well, of course, it's another indication, I think, of just how low the view of the United States has gone in this region and around the world. But I was just going to say that the last poll that we have in Egypt shows that only 20% of the population had any favorable view of the United States. And this, of course, is an indication that something has gone terribly wrong in U.S. policy.
How much responsibility is there now on the leaders of the Arab Spring countries that were supported by the US to contain these mass protests? Thought being, after all, these events could see support for terrorist groups grow, couldn't they?
Well, absolutely. That is precisely the dangerous implication of what has happened in these countries. But look, if you're talking, for example, about Egypt, you have an Islamist government in power for the first time in modern Egyptian history. And that government cannot afford to take a position that looks like it's defending the role of the United States in the country, and it's undoubtedly going to have to be very careful about the way it handles this crisis. And I think that is what we might as well settle for in this situation.
All right, investigative journalist Gareth Porter, thanks for being on the line there from Washington, D.C. Appreciate it.